I'll be presenting this morning very briefly on behalf of Rob Taylor. Rob, can you raise your hand? Rob Taylor and myself will be presenting later on, and Rob will pay me back by doing most of the presenting there. I want to get up and down pretty quick because the real feature presentation today is from Dan and Stanley and Phil here. So we'll get up and down pretty quick. I do want to sort of convey that while we titled this session REDCap and DDP, and with integration with I2B2, I think you'll see as we get into the use cases that it's we changed scope a bit, and hopefully you'll find it even more valuable than just the DDP example that we mentioned earlier. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes of an intro to REDCap, 5 minutes of an intro to, or maybe less, on some of the ideas that I've considered as really good intersection points between REDCap and I2B2, and then we'll turn it over to the guys that are really doing the good work. So a very quick history of REDCap. In 2004, there were a lot of things going on in the world, and if you recognize some of these pictures, you realize that some things have changed. Tom Brady would go on to play in more Super Bowls. Janet Jackson, not so much. So, and Lance quit riding bikes and so forth. But the thing that is most relevant for REDCap here is this was the year that the HIPAA privacy rules came on board. At Vanderbilt, we did a gap analysis. We realized that our researchers were, if we were judging today, we would say that they were misbehaving. That they were treating research data in a cavalier way and maybe not, or definitely not in compliance with HIPAA standards. They weren't doing so because they wanted to do so. They were not following good practice because they didn't have easy ways to follow good practice. So we created REDCap. We started with, and we'll talk more about this later today if you're not familiar with REDCap, but the first module was just a good way to represent case report forms to coordinators. Second module was to get good quality data out using export features and de-identification and so forth. Along the way, over the last 10 to 13 years, I guess now, we've embedded a lot more functional modules, including patient-reported outcomes and telephony and mobile apps and so forth. But really, that was the genesis, and as a result, we got to the point where there was really no excuses at Vanderbilt. We were providing an easy way to do the right thing, and most people, because it was the easy way to do the right thing, most people jumped on board, and REDCap became a pretty big hit at Vanderbilt. One of the interesting things about empowering the people is, that are using your apps, is that if you listen, they will empower you right back. And again, I mentioned the functional modules. We put out about nominally functional modules and features about once a month with REDCap even now, with the idea that never, basically the same project that we started with in August 2004 at Vanderbilt, it still runs on REDCap today, so it's always backward compatible. But it's really cool. One of my mentors, Dan Masis, told me once that his philosophy was that used systems get better, and I think we found that to be the case with REDCap from the very beginning. So the consortium story is a little bit different. We didn't really mean to create a consortium back in 2004, but in 2006, we realized that there were other institutions like Vanderbilt that had this generalizable need. So we asked if anyone wanted to collaborate. Some folks said that they did. We put together a model that allows us to give it away for free and supported it for free. But we created this volunteerism model, so a lot of that support, honestly, is done by the consortium itself. That consortium model has worked pretty well, and at least earlier this week we were at about 2,200 institutions across 108 countries. So the really cool thing about that is that with 500,000 users, we can't listen and meet with all of those 500,000 users, of course. But we do know the informatics folks that are supporting REDCap locally. And really, we've come up with use cases and ideas that would have taken 1,000 years of research at Vanderbilt to come up with. We find that people use REDCap for many, many reasons, and that's a really neat thing. So this generalizable, solid, flexible tools in the hands of really smart people, and they'll come up with all kinds of diverse use cases. And we don't have a perfect way of tracking that, but we can tell who's using it by citations, and it's just been very humbling and amazing to us in how some of the research that has used it has gone forward. So really quickly, I want to just mention a few areas of intersection, and these guys are probably going to blow these out of the water immediately. But as I've always thought about, sort of the combination of I2B2 and REDCap, I2B2 being a great cohort finder, a great research data warehouse and repository. One of the use cases, and REDCap being sort of a smaller data repository, but really good for prospective collection and patient-reported outcomes and so forth. One of the ways that we've used REDCap alongside our research data warehouse at Vanderbilt is a data mart. So being able to sort of create your cohort. The next thing you usually want is an extract of the data. And so one use case that I've always found to be kind of interesting and compelling between I2B2 and REDCap would be sort of a clickable, one-click version of taking the data, knowing the structure, knowing the information, and using REDCap APIs to create an automated data mart. Another one, and I've seen this done several times, is using REDCap as one of the data sources that get fed back into I2B2 along with the clinical information and data. And then finally, the one that sort of made it into the title that we forgot to generalize was the dynamic data pool. So we created in REDCap a number of years ago this ability, and we presented on this last year. I think Tom Campion is presenting on it Thursday again with a much more detailed presentation from their experience in Cornell. It is this concept that if we could somehow use REDCap to pull from a generalizable data warehouse, then you could use it for registries and longitudinal studies. So the idea there would be you need to do the mapping, any kind of transformation that you need to do. You need a data pool, and then you need permissions and rights. And so we've got that set up within REDCap. It's based on the end user research teams creating 3 web services at their institution and plugging it in. So again, I've heard from almost the very beginning of that great partnership between I2B2 and REDCap would be just that. Make it make it really fast and easy to set up those web services to support that use case. So with that, I'll turn it over to these guys, and then I think we'll have questions at the end.